Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the UES Potemkin, watching as their deliberately crude-looking vessel approached the massive Galactic Council station orbiting Kepler 442b. The station was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline structure the size of a small moon that housed representatives from over 300 different species. It gleamed with exotic metals and pulsed with energy fields that humanity had secretly mastered decades ago, though the aliens didn't know that. Maintaining a mission profile, reported Lieutenant Commander Martinez from the bridge. His voice carried through the ship's internal communications with perfect clarity, though to any external observers, they were using primitive radio waves that crackled with static. All stealth systems are green across the fleet. Chen nodded, her reflection ghosting across the reinforced transparent aluminum viewport. To the untrained eye, she looked every inch the professional military commander. Sharp uniform, crisp bearing, eyes that missed nothing. But hidden beneath her regulation jacket was technology that would make the galaxy's most advanced civilizations weep with envy. Bioneural interfaces, quantum processors, adaptive armor systems that could reconfigure at the molecular level. The aliens saw what humanity wanted them to see, a species still struggling with basic spaceflight. The deception had begun 53 years ago, when the first Galactic Council survey ship had detected radio transmissions from Earth. Humanity had been genuinely primitive then, barely capable of putting satellites into orbit. But Admiral Marcus Webb, Sarah's predecessor, and the architect of what would later be called the Long Game, had possessed a crucial insight that would shape the next 5 decades of human development. "If they think we're weak," he had said during that first emergency session of the newly formed Terran Defense Council, "they'll ignore us long enough for us to become strong." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. While publicly maintaining the facade of a struggling spacefaring civilization, humanity would pour every available resource into secret military development. Underground facilities on Luna, hidden construction yards in the asteroid belt, research stations disguised as mining operations in the outer system. For over 50 years, humanity had built its true military capability in the shadows while projecting an image of technological inferiority. "Incoming transmission from the Council station," reported Communications Officer Park. "They're using the standard diplomatic frequency, just like always." On screen, Chen ordered, settling into the command chair that looked appropriately primitive but was actually equipped with quantum entanglement communicators that could reach Earth instantaneously. The main viewer flickered to life, displaying the familiar features of Counselor Vexthara, a tall, elegant being from the Centauri Collective. Her species was known for their advanced biotechnology and their particularly condescending attitude toward younger civilizations. Her silver skin gleamed under the station's artificial lighting, and her 4 eyes regarded the human ship with barely concealed disdain. "Admiral Chen," Vexthara began, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species, but tinged with the patronizing tone she reserved for humans. "Welcome back to Council space. I trust your journey from the Sol system wasn't too taxing for your vessels." Chen forced herself to maintain a neutral expression. The Potemkin was actually capable of crossing the distance between Earth and the Council station in under 6 hours using their master jump drive technology, but officially, the journey had taken them 3 weeks using improved fusion drives.
"Thank you, Counselor," Chen replied, injecting just the right amount of respect and mild intimidation into her voice.
"The Terran Federation appreciates the Council's continued guidance in our development." The slight pause before guidance was calculated, not quite insubordinate, but suggesting that humanity was beginning to chafe under the Council's condescending oversight. It was important to project the image of a species that was growing bolder, but was still decades away from being a real threat. "Of course," Vexthara said smoothly. "The Council exists to nurture young civilizations and help them avoid the mistakes that have destroyed so many others. Speaking of which, I understand you've brought some new technological developments to share with us." This was the moment Chen had been preparing for. Every few years, humanity was required to demonstrate their latest technological achievements to the Council. It served dual purposes. It allowed the aliens to monitor human development, and it maintained the illusion that Earth was sharing its most advanced capabilities. "We have indeed," Chen said, activating a control that would transmit the prepared data package. "Our engineers have made significant improvements to our fusion drive efficiency, and we've developed new alloys that increase hull strength by nearly 15%. As she spoke, Chen knew that deep in the ship's hidden compartments, sensors were recording every detail of the Council station's true defensive capabilities. The technologies humanity was sharing were actually decades behind their current capabilities, carefully crafted to suggest steady but unremarkable progress. Vexthar's expression shifted slightly as she reviewed the transmitted data. For just a moment, something like surprise flickered across her features. These improvements are more significant than we expected. Your species continues to exceed our projections for your development rate. Chen felt a cold touch of concern. Had they revealed too much? The balance was always delicate. Show too little progress and the Council might decide humans were evolutionary dead-ends worthy only of extinction. Show too much and they might be perceived as a threat requiring immediate action. We've been working very hard, Chen said carefully. The recent discovery of new mineral deposits in our outer system has provided resources we didn't have access to before. This was technically true. The mineral deposits were actually the carefully planned output of their hidden manufacturing facilities. But the aliens didn't need to know that. Indeed, Vexthar mused, her secondary eyes focusing on data streams invisible to human vision. Tell me, Admiral, how many vessels does your fleet currently comprise? Another carefully prepared answer. We now have 47 ships capable of interstellar travel, Chen replied. Most are exploration and cargo vessels, but we've also constructed 12 dedicated warships for system defense. The real number was closer to 3,000, but those ships remained hidden in facilities scattered throughout human space, their signatures masked by technology that made them invisible to even the Council's most advanced sensors. 12 warships, Vexthara repeated, and Chen caught the slight upturn at the corners of her mouth that indicated amusement in her species. How
ambitious. And I suppose these vessels are equipped with your latest weapons technology.
Nuclear missiles and plasma cannons, Chen said, allowing a note of pride to creep into her voice.
We've also developed improved point defense systems. More lies. Humanity's true warships carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could shrug off stellar flares. But the aliens saw only what they expected to see, a primitive species playing with dangerous toys. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, covering trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and the Council's ongoing assessment of humanity's readiness for full membership. Chen played her part perfectly, projecting the image of a competent but ultimately limited military leader representing a species still struggling to understand their place in the galaxy. When the transmission finally ended, Chen allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 of today's operation was complete. The Council still saw humanity as a minor curiosity, a species that might someday become significant but posed no immediate threat to the established order. They had no idea that hidden throughout the system, camouflaged as asteroids and debris, nearly 100 human ships were recording every detail of the Council's most secure military installations. Maintain position, Chen ordered. Continue standard emission patterns, and remind all departments that we're still playing the part of grateful primitives. Aye, Admiral, Martinez replied, but his voice carried an undertone that suggested he, like everyone else aboard, was growing tired of the masquerade. Soon, Chen thought. Very soon. The galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. But not today. Today they would continue to be the harmless species that the Council could safely ignore. Lieutenant Commander Park looked up from her console. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Starfleet Command. Encrypt Level 7. Chen's expression didn't change, but internally she felt a spike of anticipation. Level 7 encryption was reserved for the most sensitive operations. Transfer to my ready room, she ordered, rising from her chair. The ready room was a small, Spartanly furnished compartment that appeared to contain nothing more sophisticated than a basic computer terminal and a few personal effects. But when Chen activated the hidden controls, walls slid aside to reveal equipment that represented the pinnacle of human technological achievement. Computer activate quantum entanglement communicator. Authorization Chen Alpha 77 Black. The terminal shimmered and suddenly Admiral Rebecca Morrison appeared as a perfect hologram, seated at her desk in Starfleet headquarters on Luna. The communication was instantaneous across the light years, though officially it would take weeks for a message to travel between their positions. Sarah, Morrison said without preamble, it's time. Chen felt her pulse quicken. Sir, intelligence reports that the Council is planning to move against us within the next 72 hours. They've been monitoring our real development more closely than we realized, and they're beginning to suspect the truth. The Zenthori Collective is convinced the other major powers that humanity represents a potential threat that should be eliminated before we become too dangerous to handle safely. The news wasn't entirely surprising. The long game had always been a race against time. Could humanity develop sufficient military capability before the Council decided they had seen enough? How certain is the intelligence? Chen asked. 93% confidence. Our deep cover operatives in the Zen-3 command structure have confirmed it. They're planning to present us with an ultimatum. Surrender our military assets and submit to permanent Council oversight, or face the consequences. Chen nodded grimly. The consequences would undoubtedly be the complete destruction of human civilization, disguised as some kind of unfortunate accident or necessary police action. What are our orders? Morrison's smile was cold and predatory. Operation Revelation is authorized. You are cleared to demonstrate to the Council exactly what the human race has been building for the past 50 years. For a moment, Chen felt a surge of almost overwhelming satisfaction. 50 years of deception, of biting her tongue while aliens treated her species like clever children, of pretending to be grateful for scraps of outdated technology. It was finally time to drop the mask. Acknowledged. When do we begin? The Council session is scheduled for tomorrow at 1400 station time. They plan to present their ultimatum then, expecting humanity to capitulate immediately. Instead, they're going to get a very different kind of surprise. Admiral, Chen said, unable to keep the anticipation out of her voice. This is going to be very satisfying. Morrison's expression grew serious. Remember, Sarah, this isn't about revenge. This is about survival. The Council has made it clear that they will never accept humanity as an equal partner. They see us as a threat to be controlled or eliminated, nothing more. What happens tomorrow will determine whether our species has a future among the stars or dies in its cradle. Chen straightened. Understood, sir. The fleet will be ready. See that it is. And Sarah? Make it count. We'll only get one chance to do this right. The transmission ended, leaving Chen alone with her thoughts and the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow, the careful deception that had defined human space policy for over 5 decades would come to an end. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one they had never bothered to notice. She activated the ship's internal communications. All senior staff report to Conference Room Alpha immediately. Authorization Level 7 Black. Within minutes, the room was filled with her most trusted officers, men and women who had spent their careers maintaining the greatest military deception in human history. They looked at her with expressions that mixed anticipation with concern. Ladies and gentlemen, Chen began, tomorrow we drop the act. Operation Revelation is authorized. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really been building out here. The silence that followed was pregnant with possibility and danger. They had all known this day would come, that the reality of it was still overwhelming. Questions? Chen asked. Commander Martinez raised his hand. What about the civilian populations? Earth, the colonies? Already being evacuated to secure facilities? This has been planned for decades, remember? Every human settlement has hidden bunkers that can withstand anything the Council can throw at us. We're as ready as we can be. And if we lose? Asked Chief Engineer Park. Chen's smile was fierce. Then we'll make sure the galaxy remembers that humanity died fighting. But we're not going to lose. The Council has spent 50 years underestimating us. Tomorrow that mistake is going to cost them everything. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was a testament to the combined architectural genius of 300 civilizations. The vast chamber stretched for kilometers in every direction, with seating arranged in concentric circles that descended toward a central speaking platform like an ancient amphitheater. Each species had their own section designed to accommodate their unique physiological needs, and the entire space was maintained in a carefully controlled environment that could support the wildly different atmospheric requirements of the galaxy's various sentient beings. Admiral Chen entered through the designated human entrance, flanked by her small diplomatic escort. To any observer, they appeared to be exactly what they claimed to be, the military and political leadership of a minor spacefaring civilization, dressed in uniforms that looked impressive by human standards, but were clearly primitive compared to the adaptive biosuits and energy-patterned clothing worn by the more advanced species. The human delegation took their assigned seats in the outer rim of the assembly, a placement that was itself a statement about humanity's perceived importance. The inner circles were reserved for the founding members of the Council, ancient civilizations like the Zenthari Collective, the Vorthan Empire, and the mysterious energy beings known only as the Architects. Humanity sat with the other developing species, those civilizations deemed insufficiently advanced for full Council membership, but too technologically capable to be ignored entirely. As Chen settled into her seat, she could feel the weight of hundreds of different forms of attention focused on her. Some species perceived through electromagnetic spectra beyond human vision, others used echolocation or quantum sensing. Every alien in the vast chamber was studying the human delegation with varying degrees of interest, amusement, and condescension. Chen kept her expression carefully neutral while her enhanced vision systems, hidden cybernetic implants that the aliens couldn't detect, catalogued every detail of the chamber's security arrangements. Automated defense systems were built into the architecture itself, energy barriers that could be activated instantly, and what appeared to be decorative sculptures that she recognized as disguised weapons platforms. The Council took security very seriously, which would make what was about to happen even more impressive. The ceremonial chimes that announced the beginning of a formal session echoed through the chamber, their complex harmonies designed to be pleasant to as many different auditory systems as possible. Gradually, the murmur of conversation in dozens of languages and communication methods faded to silence. High Counselor Thexmiran took the central platform. The ancient being was one of the architects, a species so old and advanced that they had transcended physical form millions of years ago and existed as pure energy patterns held together by technology that younger civilizations couldn't even begin to understand. When Thexmiran spoke, reality itself seemed to resonate with his words. "We gather today to address a matter of growing concern to this council." Thexmiran began, his voice somehow reaching every being in the chamber regardless of their hearing capabilities. "For over 50 of their solar rotations, we have observed the development of the species known as humanity. Initially dismissed as a primitive civilization with little potential for advancement, they have demonstrated a pattern of growth that some members of this council find troubling." Chen felt the attention of the entire assembly focus more intently on the human section. She maintained her composed expression while internally preparing for what she knew was coming. Councillor Vexthara of the Centauri Collective has prepared a detailed analysis of human development patterns. The floor recognizes Zenthari Prime Councillor. Vexthara rose gracefully from her position in the inner circle, her silver skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that indicated formal speech mode among her people. As she moved to the speaking platform, holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing detailed technical specifications and development curves. "Esteemed colleagues," Vexthara began, 53 years ago, humanity was a species that had barely achieved chemical rocket propulsion. They possessed nuclear weapons, but only the most primitive forms. Their computer technology was rudimentary, their understanding of physics limited to what we would consider elementary principles. The holographic displays showed images of early human technology, rockets that looked crude even by the standards of species that had achieved spaceflight millennia ago. Computers the size of buildings that possessed less processing power than a child's toy from any advanced civilization. However, Vexthara continued, and her tone shifted subtly. Their rate of advancement has consistently exceeded our projections. When we first established monitoring protocols, our xenopsychologists predicted it would take them at least 200 years to achieve reliable interstellar travel. Instead, they managed it in fewer than 30. More displays appeared, showing the progression of human technology as observed by council monitoring stations. Chen watched with professional interest, noting how carefully the Zenthari had tracked humanity's apparent development while remaining completely unaware of what was really happening. More concerning, Vexthara said, is their military focus. While most species dedicate the majority of their early space technology to exploration and resource gathering, humans have consistently prioritized military applications. Their first interstellar vessels were warships. Their space-based infrastructure is heavily militarized. This suggests a species with inherently aggressive tendencies. Chen bit back the urge to smile. If Vexthara thought 12 visible warships represented heavy militarization, she was going to have a very interesting day. Furthermore, the Zenthari continued, recent intelligence gathering has revealed technological capabilities that should not exist within their current development framework. Energy shields, advanced metallurgy, weapon systems that approach the lower thresholds of what we consider military-grade technology. This was getting more interesting. Chen wondered just how much the council actually knew and how much they were guessing. Based on this analysis, Vexthara said, the Zenthari Collective believes that humanity represents a potential threat to galactic stability. They are developing too quickly, with too much focus on military capability, and with insufficient philosophical maturity to handle advanced technology responsibly. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives from hundreds of species debated among themselves. Chen could hear fragments in dozens of languages, some arguing for immediate action, others counseling patience. still others suggesting that the Zenthari were overreacting to a minor concern. High Counselor Thex Myron allowed the discussion to continue for several minutes before calling for order. The chair recognizes Admiral Chen of the Terran Federation. You may respond to these allegations. Chen rose and walked to the speaking platform, very aware that every movement was being analyzed by sensors and observers she couldn't even detect. The platform adjusted itself to accommodate her height and atmospheric requirements, and suddenly she found herself at the center of the galaxy's most powerful political body. Honored counselors, she began, pitching her voice to carry confidence without arrogance. The Terran Federation is grateful for the Council's continued interest in our development. We have indeed made significant technological progress in recent decades, but this is the natural result of a young civilization working to establish itself among the stars. She gestured to the holographic displays that still showed human technology assessments. Everything we have achieved has been shared with the Council through regular reports and technology exchanges. We have hidden nothing and threatened no one. Our military development is focused entirely on system defense and the protection of human colonies, which surely any species would consider a reasonable priority. Murmurs of agreement came from some sections of the Assembly, particularly from species that had themselves faced external threats during their early development. As for our rate of advancement, Chen continued, perhaps this simply demonstrates that humanity possesses certain advantages that were not immediately apparent. We are a highly cooperative species when faced with external challenges, and our diversity of approach often leads to innovative solutions. Counselor Vexthara stepped forward. Admiral Chen, are you claiming that humanity has achieved these advances through entirely conventional means? Chen met her gaze steadily. I am stating that everything the Terran Federation has accomplished has been achieved through the dedicated effort of our people, using resources available within our territory and knowledge gained through legitimate research and development. Every word was technically true, which was important when speaking to species that possessed highly advanced truth detection capabilities. I see, Vexthara said, her tone suggesting skepticism. In that case, you will have no objection to a formal council inspection of your military facilities and a complete audit of your technological capabilities. Chen felt a chill of anticipation. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The opening move in what would either be humanity's greatest triumph or their final disaster. Of course, she said calmly. The Terran Federation has always been committed to transparency with the Council. We welcome any inspection you deem necessary. Vexthara's expression suggested that this was not the response she had expected. Chen could see confusion in her secondary eyes. Clearly, she had anticipated resistance, which would have justified immediate action. High Counselor Thex Myron stepped forward. Very well. However, given the Zenthari Collective's concerns about human military development, this inspection will need to be immediate and comprehensive. We cannot allow potentially dangerous technology to remain unmonitored while bureaucratic procedures are followed. Chen nodded. Understood. How do you propose to proceed? The Council hereby exercises Emergency Protocol 7, Thex Myron announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. All human military assets will be immediately secured by Council peacekeeping forces pending complete inspection. Any resistance to this action will be considered an act of aggression against the galactic community. The chamber fell silent. Emergency Protocol 7 was rarely invoked, and never against a species that maintained even nominal independence. It was essentially a declaration that humanity was no longer considered trustworthy enough to maintain its own military forces. Chen felt hundreds of alien gazers focused on her, waiting to see how she would react. Some clearly expected outrage, others anticipated immediate capitulation. She let the silence stretch for long moments, as if she were carefully considering her response. Finally, she spoke. High Counselor, the Terran Federation recognizes the Council's authority in matters of galactic security. However, I must point out that what you're proposing is essentially the complete military occupation of human space. Surely there must be a less invasive approach to addressing these concerns. The Council's decision is final, Thex Myron replied. Your cooperation in this matter will be noted and may influence future discussions about humanity's status within the galactic community. Chen nodded slowly, as if accepting the inevitable. I understand. However, I should inform you that implementing Protocol 7 against the Terran Federation may prove more complex than previous applications. Vexthara stepped forward, her bioluminescent pattern shifting to indicate aggressive interest. Are you threatening resistance, Admiral? Chen's smile was small and enigmatic. Not at all, Counselor. I'm simply suggesting that the Council may have some misconceptions about the scope of the operation they're undertaking. She activated her wrist communicator, a device that appeared to be standard human technology, but was actually connected to quantum entanglement networks throughout human space. Admiral Morrison, please inform the fleet that the Council has just authorized Protocol 7 against the Terran Federation. The response came immediately, though to the aliens it would appear to be a delayed transmission from Earth. Acknowledged, Admiral Chen. All units are standing by for Operation Revelation. Chen deactivated the communicator and looked up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Honored Councilors, before you begin your inspection of human military assets, perhaps you would be interested in seeing exactly what those assets comprise. She raised her hand, and suddenly the vast chamber was filled with the sound of her voice amplified to reach every corner of the assembly. Computer, execute Revelation Protocol. Authorization Chen Alpha 7 Black. Decloak the fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every sensor screen, every monitoring station, and every scanning array in the Council station began screaming alarms simultaneously. On the main display screens throughout the chamber, tactical readouts began appearing faster than most observers could follow. Ship signatures materialized throughout the system as advanced stealth fields suddenly deactivated. One ship became 10, 10 became 50, 50 became hundreds. Within 30 seconds, the displays showed nearly 3,000 human vessels of various classes surrounding the Council station. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Council fleet. Carriers disgorging clouds of fighters that moved with impossible precision. Escort ships that registered energy signatures beyond anything the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had achieved. The silence in the chamber was absolute, broken only by the continuous wail of emergency alarms that no one seemed capable of shutting off. Chen looked up at High Counselor Thex Myron, whose energy form was flickering with what she recognized as extreme shock. I believe this constitutes full disclosure of our military capabilities, as requested. Will there be anything else the Council requires for its inspection? Councillor Vextara stared at the tactical displays with all four eyes, her silver skin cycling through rapid color changes that indicated severe psychological stress.
This is impossible, she whispered.
Where did they come from? How long have they been there? Chen's smile was no longer small. Oh, they've been here all along, Councillor. We've just been waiting for the right moment to introduce ourselves properly. The greatest deception in galactic history was finally over. Now the real work would begin. The tactical displays throughout the Grand Assembly Hall continued to update as more ships decloaked throughout the system. What had begun as a few dozen contacts had grown to hundreds, then thousands. The massive holographic projections showed vessels ranging from sleek destroyers to kilometer-long dreadnoughts, each one broadcasting identification codes that marked them as human ships that had somehow remained completely invisible to the galaxy's most advanced sensor networks. Admiral Chen stood calmly at the speaking platform while chaos erupted around her. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting questions, demands, and accusations in a dozen different languages. Emergency protocols were being activated throughout the station as automated systems struggled to process the sudden appearance of what appeared to be the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history. High Counselor Thex Myron's energy form stabilized, though Chen could see the equivalent of stress patterns flickering through his quantum matrix. When he spoke, his voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk, instantly silencing the chamber. Admiral Chen, he said, and there was something in his tone that hadn't been there before, a note of respect mixed with wariness. Perhaps you would be so kind as to explain how the Terran Federation has managed to conceal a military force of this magnitude. Chen gestured to the tactical displays that showed ship after ship continuing to materialize from what had appeared to be empty space. Honored Counselor, I think the more appropriate question might be why we felt the need to conceal it in the first place. She activated her personal holographic projector, and the space above the platform filled with images from human history. Ancient battles, burning cities, species driven to extinction by more powerful neighbors. When humanity first detected your survey ships 53 years ago, Chen began, our leaders faced a crucial decision. We could reveal ourselves as we truly were, a young, aggressive species that had conquered our entire world through superior military technology. Or we could present ourselves as something more palatable to galactic civilization. The images shifted to show the early Council communications, the condescending diplomatic exchanges, the casual dismissal of human capabilities. It quickly became clear that the galaxy was not interested in welcoming humanity as an equal partner. We were seen as primitives to be guided, controlled, and ultimately limited in our development. The Council's own psychological profiles classified us as potentially dangerous if allowed unrestricted advancement. Murmurs of discomfort rippled through the assembly. Several species looked distinctly uncomfortable as their own words were quoted back to them. So we made a strategic decision, Chen continued. We would give the galaxy exactly what it expected to see. A species struggling to understand technologies that we had actually mastered before your first contact. While you monitored our primitive developments, we built our real capabilities in secret. Councillor Vextara found her voice. The energy signatures alone should have been detectable. No stealth technology in known space could hide a fleet of this size. Chen's smile was genuinely pleased. You're absolutely right, Councillor. No known stealth technology could accomplish this, which is why we had to invent something entirely new. She gestured to the nearest human ship visible through the chamber's massive transperisteel windows. Every vessel in our fleet is equipped with quantum phase generators that don't just hide them from sensors, they temporarily shift the ships into a parallel dimensional matrix where they remain fully operational but completely undetectable by any conventional means. The silence that followed the statement was profound. Dimensional manipulation was theoretical even for the most advanced Council civilizations. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible for any species to achieve. Furthermore, Chen continued, clearly enjoying the effect of her revelations, our manufacturing facilities have been operating for decades in the same dimensional phase. What you've seen of our industrial capacity represents less than 5% of our actual production capability. General Korvash, the military commander of the Vorthan Empire, leaned forward in his section. The massive reptilian being was one of the galaxy's most respected military strategists, and his expression was one of grudging professional admiration mixed with alarm. Admiral, Korvash said, his voice carrying the careful tone of a professional soldier addressing an unexpectedly dangerous opponent, you're claiming that humanity has not only developed military technology beyond anything in Council space, but that you've been operating a shadow industrial complex for over 50 years. The logistics alone were challenging, Chen agreed. But humans have certain advantages when it comes to long-term planning and resource management. When an entire species commits to a single goal, remarkable things become possible. She activated another holographic display showing the hidden facilities scattered throughout human space. Massive construction yards hollowed out of asteroids, manufacturing complexes buried beneath the surfaces of dozens of moons. Research stations disguised as mining operations that had been conducting experiments beyond the cutting edge of galactic science. Every human colony, every mining operation, every apparently civilian installation has been part of this project, Chen explained. We've spent 5 decades preparing for the day when the galaxy would decide we had grown too powerful to be allowed to exist independently. High Councillor Thexmyron's energy patterns were cycling through configurations that Chen's cultural briefings had told her indicated deep thought mixed with considerable alarm. You speak as if you anticipated this confrontation. We planned for it, Chen corrected. Humanity has a long history of studying potential threats and preparing countermeasures. When we analyzed the Council's historical behavior toward developing species, certain patterns became apparent. More holographic displays appeared, showing data analyses and historical projections. Species that develop too quickly are subjected to protective oversight. Species that show too much military capability face preventive intervention. Species that refuse to accept subordinate status are subjected to necessary pacification measures. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably as their own civilization's past actions were catalogued and analyzed. We concluded that the Council would never accept humanity as an equal partner, Chen continued. At some point, you would decide that we represented a threat that needed to be contained or eliminated. Today simply proved that our analysis was correct. Councillor Vexthara's bioluminescent patterns were cycling rapidly between anger and something that might have been fear. You're accusing the Council of planning genocide? Chen's expression became very serious. I'm stating that Emergency Protocol 7, as applied to an independent species, is functionally equivalent to the complete elimination of that species' sovereignty. History shows that such interventions rarely end with the target civilization maintaining any meaningful independence. The truth of this statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Several of the older Council members looked distinctly uncomfortable as their own past actions were implicitly referenced. So what do you propose? High Councillor Thexmyron asked. You have revealed military capabilities that fundamentally alter the balance of power in this region of space. The Council cannot simply ignore this development. Chen nodded. You're absolutely right, which is why I'm authorized to make you an offer. She gestured, and the tactical displays shifted to show detailed specifications of human technology. Power generation systems that operated at efficiencies approaching theoretical maximums. Weapons platforms that could crack moons. Defensive systems that could withstand direct stellar bombardment. For 50 years, humanity has been observing, analyzing, and learning from galactic civilization. We've identified numerous technological and social problems that our unique perspective might help solve. Diseases that affect silicon-based life forms, energy distribution challenges in matter-based civilizations, defensive strategies against threats from outside the galaxy. The displays showed research data, technological solutions, and strategic analyses that represented decades of careful study and innovation. We propose a new kind of relationship, Chen said. Not the traditional model where younger species are guided and controlled by their elders, but a genuine partnership where humanity contributes our capabilities in exchange for full participation in galactic civilization. General Korvash leaned forward again. And if the Council declines this generous offer? Chen's smile was cold and professional. Then humanity will pursue its own destiny independently. We have no desire for conquest or domination, General. But we will not accept subordination either. The galaxy is large enough for multiple power centers. Are you threatening to establish a rival political structure? Dexthara demanded. I'm stating that humanity is now capable of defending its interests and those of any species that chooses to ally with us, Chen replied. Whether that results in a rival structure depends entirely on how the Council chooses to respond to our emergence as a major galactic power. The implications of this statement rippled through the Assembly. Several species that had chafed under Council oversight looked suddenly thoughtful, while the established powers appeared increasingly concerned. High Councillor Thexmiran raised his hand for silence. Admiral Chen, you are asking this Council to fundamentally reorganize galactic civilization based on a revelation of military capability. Such decisions cannot be made quickly or lightly. I understand, Chen replied, which is why I'm prepared to offer a demonstration of humanity's peaceful intentions. She activated her communicator again. Admiral Morrison, please implement gesture protocol. Within minutes, the tactical displays began showing a remarkable transformation. The massive human fleet that had seemed so threatening began to reorganize itself into a clearly defensive formation around the Council station. More importantly, several of the larger vessels began broadcasting detailed technical specifications of their defensive systems. For the next 72 hours, Chen announced, the entire human fleet will serve as the Council station's primary defense force. Any threat to this facility or its occupants will be met with the full capabilities you've seen demonstrated today. Consider it a token of our good intentions and a preview of what genuine cooperation between our peoples might accomplish. The gesture was calculated to be both reassuring and intimidating. The Council now had the protection of the most advanced military force in known space, but they were also effectively surrounded by ships that could reduce their station to atoms if negotiations went badly. Councillor Vextara looked at the displays showing human ships positioning themselves as protectors rather than conquerors. This is unexpected. Chen nodded. Humanity has spent 50 years learning about galactic civilization. We understand that trust must be earned through actions, not just words. We're prepared to demonstrate that our emergence as a major power can benefit everyone, not just ourselves. High Councillor Thexmiran's energy patterns shifted to configurations that Chen recognized as indicating careful consideration. Very well. The Council will consider your proposal. However, such a fundamental change in galactic political structure will require extensive debate and analysis. Of course, Chen agreed. But I should mention that several species have already indicated their interest in establishing formal alliance relationships with humanity, regardless of the Council's decision. This was news to most of the Assembly, and Chen watched with satisfaction as representatives from various species began looking around with sudden speculation about which of their neighbors might have been conducting secret negotiations. In truth, humanity had been very careful not to approach anyone directly, but their intelligence networks had identified numerous species that were dissatisfied with the current power structure. The suggestion that some might be considering alternatives would add useful pressure to the Council's deliberations. Admiral, General Korvash said, your species has clearly been planning this revelation for decades. What assurance can you give that this isn't simply the first phase of a larger campaign for galactic dominance? Chen met his gaze steadily. General, if humanity wanted galactic dominance, do you think we would have spent 50 years hiding our capabilities while building relationships and studying the most effective ways to integrate with existing civilization? We could have emerged at any point during the past 2 decades with overwhelming military superiority and simply imposed our will. She gestured to the displays showing human technological capabilities. Instead, we chose to reveal ourselves through diplomatic channels and offer genuine partnership. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears. The debate that followed lasted for hours, with representatives from dozens of species weighing in on the implications of humanity's emergence. Chen remained at the platform, answering questions with calm professionalism, while the galaxy's most powerful beings struggled to adapt to a completely changed political landscape. Finally, High Counselor Thexmyron called for a formal recess. The Council will deliberate for the next 48 hours. During this time, we accept the Terran Federation's offer of protective services. Admiral Chen, you and your delegation are invited to remain as honored guests while these discussions proceed. Chen bowed respectfully. Thank you, High Counselor. Humanity looks forward to a productive dialogue. As the assembly began to disperse, Chen couldn't help but feel a deep satisfaction. The long game was finally over, and the galaxy would never be the same. Whether the Council chose cooperation or confrontation, humanity had revealed itself as a force that could no longer be ignored or dismissed. The age of human deception was ending. The age of human power was just beginning. The private chambers of the Galactic Council were a stark contrast to the grandeur of the public assembly hall. Here, away from the carefully orchestrated diplomacy and formal protocols, the true power brokers of galactic civilization gathered to address the crisis that Admiral Chen's revelation had created. The room itself was deliberately stark, designed to focus attention on discussion rather than display, though the beings gathered around the quantum conference matrix represented the accumulated wisdom and power of millions of years of advancement. High Counselor Thexmyron materialized at the head of the table, his energy form crackling with barely contained anxiety. Around him, the senior leadership of the galaxy's most influential civilizations appeared either physically or through holographic projection. General Korvash of the Vorthan Empire, his massive reptilian frame somehow managing to look thoughtful despite its inherently predatory appearance. Counselor Vexthara of the Zenthari Collective, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through configurations that indicated deep concern. Prime Minister Yelith of the Arachnid Confederation, her crystalline exoskeleton refracting the chamber's lighting into prismatic patterns. And others, representatives of species so advanced or alien that their presence could only be indicated by specialized environmental chambers or energy fields. The implications of today's revelations cannot be overstated, Thexmyron began, his voice carrying harmonics that registered on multiple perception spectra simultaneously. In a single moment, the human species has demonstrated that they possess technology beyond our most optimistic projections for their development, military capability that rivals or exceeds our own combined fleets, and strategic planning abilities that allowed them to deceive our entire intelligence apparatus for over half a century. General Korvash leaned forward, his massive claws scraping against the table's adaptive surface. The question is not whether they possess these capabilities. The evidence is undeniable. The question is what we do about it. Counselor Vexthara's secondary eyes focused on data streams, invisible to most of the other participants. My analysts have been studying the technical specifications that Admiral Chen shared. The dimensional phase technology alone represents a breakthrough that we classified as theoretically impossible given known physical constraints. Either humanity has discovered fundamental principles of physics that we've overlooked, or what? Prompted Prime Minister Yelith, her translated voice carrying undertones that suggested predatory interest. Or they've been receiving technological assistance from a source beyond our current knowledge, Vexthara finished. The advancement curve is simply too steep for any known developmental pattern. Thexmyron's energy pattern shifted to configurations indicating deep consideration. You're suggesting the possibility of intervention by an unknown power? It's one explanation, Vexthara said. Though given their demonstrated deception capabilities, it's equally possible that they simply hid their true developmental rate more effectively than we imagined. The discussion that followed revealed the depth of concern that humanity's emergence had created among the galaxy's established powers. For millions of years, the Council had maintained stability through a carefully balanced system of overlapping authority and mutual deterrence. The sudden appearance of a military force that could potentially challenge their combined capabilities threatened to upset that balance in unpredictable ways. The defensive formation they've assumed around this station is tactically brilliant, General Korvash admitted with grudging respect. They've positioned themselves to protect us, while simultaneously demonstrating that they could destroy us if they chose. It's a masterpiece of military diplomacy, Prime Minister Yellet's crystalline features reflected complex patterns as she processed multiple data streams. What concerns me is their obvious familiarity with our psychological profiles and diplomatic procedures. They anticipated our responses with remarkable accuracy. 50 years of observation, Thexmiran mused. They've been studying us as carefully as we've been studying them, but they did it without revealing their true capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the assembled leaders contemplated the implications. It was a scenario none of them had prepared for, the emergence of a species that had not only achieved parity with galactic civilization, but had done so while maintaining complete operational security. We need to address the immediate practical concerns, said Director Zafon, speaking for the first time. The representative of the Silicon Communes existed as a distributed intelligence network, and his voice seemed to come from multiple sources simultaneously. 17 species have already requested private audiences with human representatives. The political implications are significant. Vexthara's bioluminescent patterns shifted to aggressive configurations. Are you suggesting that some council members are considering alliance relationships with the humans? I'm stating that some council members are reconsidering their position within the current power structure, Zafon replied. The humans have demonstrated that it's possible to achieve major power status without council oversight or approval. That's a dangerous precedent. Indeed, the political implications were staggering. For millennia, the Council had maintained its authority partly through the assumption that no species could achieve galactic significance without their guidance and approval. Humanity had proven that assumption wrong in the most dramatic fashion possible. The Rigel Federation has already indicated that they might find human partnership arrangements more beneficial than current Council relationships, General Korvash reported grimly. And they're not the only ones. Our intelligence networks are reporting increased communication activity among several of the Outer Rim species. Thexmiran's energy form flickered with what experienced observers would recognize as deep alarm. How many species are we talking about? Potentially 40 to 50, Korvash admitted. Species that have felt constrained by Council oversight policies or that have been denied advancement opportunities under current protocols. The numbers were sobering. While the Council controlled the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, their authority also depended on the cooperation of hundreds of smaller species. If humanity could offer those species an alternative power structure, the political landscape could change dramatically. We must also consider the technological implications, added research coordinator Morpheus, whose gaseous form inhabited a specialized containment field. The humans have offered to share certain technologies with the broader galactic community. Several of their innovations could solve problems that have plagued us for centuries. Vexthara's patterns shifted to skeptical configurations. Assuming their offers are genuine and not simply more sophisticated deceptions, the technical specifications they've shared so far appear to be authentic, Morpheus replied. Their power generation systems alone could increase energy efficiency across Council space by 30%. Their medical applications could extend lifespans for most carbon-based species by significant margins. And their weapons systems could reduce Council military superiority to insignificance, General Korvash added darkly. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the station's security center. Admiral Chen had requested a private audience with the Council leadership, claiming she had additional information that would be relevant to their deliberations. Interesting timing, Thexmiran observed. Bring her in. Admiral Chen entered the chamber with the same calm confidence she had displayed throughout the day's proceedings. She moved to the center of the room and waited respectfully for permission to speak. Though her enhanced perception systems were undoubtedly cataloguing every detail of the Council's private meeting space. Honored councillors, she began, I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but recent developments require your immediate attention. Thexmiran gestured for her to continue.
What developments?
Chen activated a portable holographic projector that materialized detailed star charts above the conference table. Approximately 6 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected unusual energy signatures from the Andromeda Galaxy. Long-range analysis indicates the approach of what appears to be an invasion fleet of unknown origin. The silence that followed was absolute. Extragalactic threats were theoretical concerns that most species never seriously considered. The fleet consists of at least 10,000 vessels of unknown design and technology, Chen continued. Based on their current trajectory and speed, they will reach the outer regions of Council space within approximately 18 months. General Korvash leaned forward, his professional instincts overriding political concerns. What is the confidence level of this assessment? 97%, Chen replied. we've had these monitoring systems in place for over 20 years, specifically to watch for threats from outside our galaxy. This is the first time they've detected anything of significance. Vexthara's bioluminescent patterns were cycling rapidly. Why are you sharing this information with us? Shen's expression became grave. Because based on our analysis of the approaching fleet's energy signatures and movement patterns, they're not coming here to establish diplomatic relationships. This appears to be a full-scale invasion force, and their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than anything currently available in our galaxy. The implications hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. An external threat of this magnitude would require unprecedented cooperation among galactic civilizations, and humanity had chosen to share this intelligence at the most critical moment possible. You're suggesting that our current political crisis is about to become irrelevant, Thexmiran said. I'm suggesting that galactic civilization is facing its first genuine existential threat, Chen corrected. The invasion fleet's estimated capabilities exceed anything any single council member could handle individually. Even our combined military forces might not be sufficient. She gestured to the star charts, highlighting projected invasion routes and potential strategic targets. However, humanity's unique technological capabilities, combined with council experience and resources, might provide the foundation for an effective defense. The message was clear without being explicitly stated. The galaxy needed humanity as much as humanity needed the galaxy. The political standoff that had defined the day's proceedings had suddenly become a luxury that none of them could afford. Prime Minister Yeleth spoke for the first time since Chen had entered. What are you proposing?
Full military alliance, Chen replied without hesitation.
Human technology and strategic capabilities integrated with council forces and resources. Shared command structure, combined industrial capacity, unified defense planning. Under whose authority? General Korvash asked. Chen's smile was diplomatically neutral. That would be a matter for negotiation. But I suspect that facing extinction tends to make species more flexible about traditional authority structures. Thexmiran's energy patterns shifted to configurations indicating rapid calculation and analysis. You're asking us to essentially abandon our current political structure in favor of a new alliance specifically designed to meet this threat. I'm asking you to adapt to circumstances, Chen corrected. The galaxy's political structure has served well during peacetime, but war, especially war against an unknown enemy with superior technology, requires different approaches. The chamber fell silent as the assembled leaders grappled with the magnitude of what they were facing. Humanity had emerged as a major galactic power at precisely the moment when such power would be desperately needed. Whether this timing was coincidence or careful planning was a question that would have to wait for calmer times. How long do we have to prepare? Vexthara asked. 18 months for full-scale contact, Chen replied. But advanced Scarp forces could arrive within 6 months. If we're going to mount an effective defense, we need to begin immediate coordination of resources and planning. General Korvash stood, his massive frame radiating professional determination. Then we need to make decisions quickly. Admiral Chen, can you provide detailed intelligence on this approaching fleet to our military analysis teams? All information we possess is at your disposal, Chen confirmed. But General, I should mention that our defensive preparations will require unprecedented industrial mobilization. Every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every research center in the galaxy will need to be coordinated toward a single goal. The implications were staggering. The kind of coordination Chen was describing would require a level of political integration that had never existed in galactic history. You're talking about essentially merging our civilizations for the duration of the war, Thexmiran said. Chen nodded. War has a way of breaking down artificial barriers. Survival tends to be a powerful motivator for cooperation. As the council leaders contemplated this reality, it became clear that Admiral Chen's revelation had accomplished far more than simply announcing humanity's emergence as a galactic power. It had fundamentally altered the context in which all future decisions would be made. The galaxy was about to face its greatest test, and humanity had positioned itself as either the key to salvation or the catalyst for unprecedented change. Either way, the age of council dominance was ending, and something entirely new was about to begin. 6 months after Admiral Chen's revelation, the Galactic Defense Coordination Center hummed with an energy that would have been impossible to imagine under the old council system. Located in what had once been purely human space, the massive facility represented the most ambitious cooperative effort in galactic history. Representatives from over 200 species worked side by side, their various atmospheric and gravitational requirements accommodated by technology that seamlessly blended human innovation with council engineering expertise. Admiral Chen stood before the central holographic display, watching as the latest intelligence updates painted an increasingly detailed picture of the approaching Andromedan fleet. The 6 months of preparation had transformed not just military capabilities, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. What had begun as an emergency alliance had evolved into something unprecedented, a truly integrated multi-species command structure that was proving far more effective than anyone had dared hope. "Admiral," called Commander Tavara, a Zenthari tactical specialist whose bioluminescent patterns had learned to incorporate human-readable data streams. "The latest deep space monitoring reports are coming in. The enemy advanced scouts are maintaining their projected timeline." Chen nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the current positions of what they now called the Andromedan Incursion Force. Devon. The enemy fleet had proven to be even more formidable than initial estimates suggested. Their technology was clearly superior to anything previously known, and their approach patterns indicated strategic planning capabilities that rivaled the best human or council military minds. "Status report on the defense preparations?" Chen requested. The response came from General Korvash, whose massive Vorthan frame had adapted surprisingly well to working in close coordination with human personnel. "Industrial production is exceeding all projections. The integration of human dimensional manufacturing with council resource networks has increased our output capacity by a factor of 12. The numbers were staggering. The cooperation that had been forced by necessity had revealed synergies that no one had anticipated. Human technology that could phase production facilities into parallel dimensions, combined with council expertise in resource extraction and distribution, had created an industrial base capable of supporting the largest military buildup in galactic history.
Weapons development, Chen continued.
Research Coordinator Morpheus, whose gaseous form now inhabited a specially designed mobile containment system, responded with enthusiasm that transcended species barriers. "The hybrid technology development program has produced remarkable results. Human defensive systems integrated with Zenthari biotech and Vorthan energy weapons have created ship designs that exceed the capabilities of either species working independently." Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The emergency that had forced this cooperation had revealed that the galaxy's various species were far more compatible than centuries of political separation had suggested. When survival was at stake, differences in philosophy and approach became advantages rather than obstacles. "Ma'am," interrupted Lieutenant Park, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Sol system. Admiral Morrison is requesting immediate conference." Chen nodded, moving to the secure communication chamber that allowed quantum entanglement links to Earth. The technology still seemed miraculous to most Council species, but it had become essential for coordinating defense efforts across hundreds of light years. Admiral Morrison's holographic image materialized with perfect clarity, as if she were standing in the same room rather than communicating across interstellar distances. "Sarah, we've got both good news and bad news. Give me the bad news first." Morrison's expression was grim. "Our latest projections suggest that the main Andromedan fleet is larger than we initially estimated. We're now looking at potentially 15,000 vessels, and some of them register energy signatures that suggest planet-killer capabilities." Chen felt a chill. Planet killers were theoretical weapons that most civilizations never seriously considered developing. The idea that the Andromedans possessed them in significant numbers was terrifying. "And the good news?" Morrison's smile was fierce. "The Rigel Federation has agreed to share their temporal manipulation research. Combined with our dimensional technology and the Council's quantum engineering, we might have a way to turn their superior numbers against them." Chen raised an eyebrow. Temporal manipulation was one of the most dangerous technologies ever theorized. The potential for catastrophic accidents was enormous, but so was the strategic potential. "How confident are our scientists that they can make this work safely?" 70% confidence that we can develop deployable systems within 12 months, Morrison replied. 90% confidence that we can avoid accidentally destroying the galaxy while we're doing it. Under normal circumstances, those odds would be unacceptable for such dangerous research. But facing extinction, they represented reasonable risks. "Authorized," Chen said. "But I want daily progress reports and immediate shutdown procedures if anything looks like it's getting out of control." "Understood. Sarah, there's something else. Intelligence reports suggest that not all Council species are fully committed to this alliance." Chen frowned. "Explain."
There are indications that some of the Outer Rim species are considering whether they might be better off trying to negotiate with the Andromedans rather than fighting them.
The Crystalline Confederacy has been particularly quiet lately, and our diplomatic monitors have detected unusual communication patterns.
This was troubling but not entirely unexpected. The unprecedented cooperation of the past 6 months had masked the fact that many species were still uncertain about abandoning traditional political structures. Some might calculate that surrender offered better prospects than resistance. How serious is the risk? Unknown, Morrison admitted. But if even a few major systems decide to switch sides, it could compromise our entire defensive strategy. Chen considered the implications. The defense plan depended on coordinated responses across multiple sectors. If some species chose to surrender or actively support the Andromedans, it could create gaps in coverage that would be impossible to compensate for. I'll address it, Chen said. Is there anything else? Just this. The President wanted me to tell you that the entire human species is proud of what you've accomplished. 6 months ago, we were hiding in the shadows. Now we're leading a galactic alliance that might actually have a chance of survival. Not bad for a species of primitive mud crawlers. Chen smiled at the reference to the old Council designation for humanity. We'll see if we can maintain that progress. Chen out. The transmission ended, leaving Chen alone with her thoughts. The magnitude of what they were attempting was almost overwhelming. In 6 months, they had reorganized galactic civilization, integrated technologies from dozens of species, and built military capabilities that exceeded anything in recorded history. But they were still facing an enemy that possessed technologies beyond current understanding and numerical superiority that was difficult to comprehend. She returned to the command center, where the constant activity of coordination and preparation continued. The sight never failed to amaze her. Beings from species that had barely communicated 6 months ago, now working together as if they had been allies for generations. Admiral, called Director Zafan, his distributed consciousness allowing him to monitor multiple data streams simultaneously. We're receiving reports from the forward monitoring stations. The Andromedan advanced scouts have begun active scanning of our outer defensive positions. Chen moved to the tactical display, studying the new information. The enemy scouts were probing their defenses, trying to assess capabilities and identify weaknesses. It was standard military procedure, but it also meant that the timeline for contact was accelerating. Time estimate for first engagement? She asked. 72 hours plus or minus 12, General Korvash replied. The scouts appear to be moving faster than their main fleet. Chen nodded. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The first actual test of their combined capabilities against an unknown enemy. All right, everyone. This is what we've been working toward. General Korvash, implement Defense Protocol Alpha. Commander Tavra, alert all fleet commanders that we're moving to combat readiness. Director Zafon. Activate all monitoring networks and prepare for full intelligence gathering. The command center erupted into controlled activity as species that had spent millennia developing their own unique approaches to warfare began implementing strategies that none of them could have conceived independently. Admiral, said Research Coordinator Morpheus, there's something you should know about our weapons testing. Chen turned to the gaseous being, noting the excitement in his energy patterns. Good news? The dimensional phase cannon exceeded all expectations. When we tested it against a mock-up of Andromedan technology based on our sensor readings, the results were remarkable. Morpheus activated a holographic display showing test footage of the new weapons system. Chen watched as energy beams that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously tore through defensive systems that should have been impenetrable. How many ships are equipped with these systems, she asked. 200 of our most advanced vessels, General Korvash replied, with production continuing around the clock. Chen studied the tactical projections, calculating odds and probabilities. They had advantages, superior coordination, integrated technologies, and the desperation that came from fighting for survival. But they also faced unknowns that could prove decisive. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park announced, incoming priority transmission from the Crystalline Confederacy. Chen felt a moment of apprehension. This could be the confirmation of her worst fears about Allied unity. The holographic image that appeared was of Prime Crystal Valax, the collective consciousness that spoke for the crystalline species. His geometric form pulsed with patterns that Chen had learned to recognize as formal diplomatic communications. Admiral Chen, Valax began, the Crystalline Confederacy has completed its analysis of the current situation. Chen braced herself for news of defection or demands for separate peace negotiations. We hereby commit our entire industrial and military capacity to the Defense Alliance. Valix continued. Furthermore, we are prepared to share our matter conversion technologies, which we have previously kept classified. Chen felt a wave of relief mixed with excitement. Matter conversion was technology that could revolutionize both military and industrial capabilities. Prime Crystal Valix, the Alliance welcomes your full participation. Your technologies could be decisive. We have concluded that cooperation with our galactic neighbors offers better prospects for survival than any alternative, Valix replied. The Andromedans have made no attempts at communication. This suggests that they do not view us as potential allies or subjects, but as obstacles to be eliminated. The transmission ended, leaving Chen with renewed confidence. If the Crystalline Confederacy, one of the most cautious species in the galaxy, was committing fully to the Alliance, it suggested that the unity they had built was stronger than she had dared hope. Admiral General Korvash announced, "Forward scouts are reporting first visual contact with Andromedan vessels." The moment of truth had arrived. Chen looked around the command center at beings from dozens of species, all focused on a single goal, the survival of galactic civilization. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Now it represented their only hope. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. Commence Operation Galactic Storm. Let's show our visitors that this galaxy is not as easy to conquer as they might expect. The first shots of the war would be fired within hours. But Chen was no longer the representative of a species pretending to be primitive while secretly building power. She was the commander of the greatest military alliance in galactic history, leading civilizations that had learned to combine their strengths in ways that none of them could have achieved alone. The aliens had laughed at humanity when they first arrived. They weren't laughing now. In fact, Chen thought as she watched the final preparations for battle, they probably never would again. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength came not from individual power, but from the willingness to unite against a common threat. The war was about to begin, but galactic civilization would face it as one people, with capabilities that exceeded anything their enemies could have anticipated. And at the heart of it all was a species that had turned deception into preparation, and preparation into salvation.